back to the podcast. My name is Robbie Cassidy, and in this episode of the podcast, I'm actually going to change it up a small bit. I'm going to talk about playing subconscious tricks on yourself, and maybe wondering what I mean by that, but it's actually something that came up with a client that I was have been working with, I should say, over the last few months. And it's something that she said to me is that she notices that she actually plays these little tricks on herself at times, which inhibit or affect her performance and affect her rehab. And it was a really interesting one because it's something that I see crop up a lot, but I never really thought about how it comes about or why it happens. And really when you look at it in more detail, it comes back to what people, I guess, value, their belief in themselves and how they really, I guess, look at themselves, their identity, because you can get caught with these little tricks that you may play on yourself, and then you give yourself excuses down the road because it happened. Okay, so first off, what I want to look at I kind of want to make this a nice short podcast, something that you can just dip through nice and fast and see if these are any of the tricks that you play on yourself. But I think the first thing I'm going to start with is, do you find yourself ever that you fall down at the same hurdles or the same obstacles often? And I'll talk a small bit actually about myself first, because when she mentioned it to me, I first had to after the call, we talked through it, and then I had to journal on it, and I wanted to think about it myself. When do I do it to myself? And what do I do to myself? And I think a lot of them, when I was thinking back on it, I was thinking about jiu-jitsu specifically, because I was like, I need to perform. I want to perform at my best for competitions and in training, so I can learn as quick as possible and get a good understanding of the sport and a good understanding of how to handle the sport. And I was noticing that with certain guys who were higher belts than me, when I was rolling with them, that at a certain point in the roll, if I felt there was nothing I could do to get out of it, I was actually nearly quitting, or giving up early, letting the submission happen, and then trying to start again from the start. And it was a thing that I hadn't really realized before, but I was wondering then, is this something that plays over into my performance? Is there some time in my performance, or is there some time in a game, whether it be in football or if it was boxing or if it's jiu-jitsu, whatever it is, that a pattern can creep in and that I shut off for a couple of seconds and then give myself the excuse that, I wasn't able to handle it, or I wasn't good enough to do it. And I did a good bit of journaling on it, and I think it was something that, I think, to be honest, that it happens to most people, or it happens to a lot of people, that you do, once you feel there's nothing you can do, you just give up on it. And in this situation, there was obviously a lot more I could do, but it was just, I wanted to get back to the start as quick as possible when I was looking at jiu-jitsu, and so I just let submission happen, reset, and go again. That was one. Now, when I talked to other clients about it, what I found out is that a lot of them weren't following through with their rehab in the past. And this is something that we figured out early in the rehab phase, because what was happening to them is that they were following through with their rehab to a point that they felt, okay, I was good enough, and then they weren't actually finishing it out. So the same injury was happening again and again. And every time the same injury reoccurs, your body remembers that, your nervous system remembers that, and at times then it can become overprotective of that as a result. And then the other main one that I saw popping up was relying on motivation. Okay, and relying on motivation in a lot of situations, so to get them through training sessions, to get them through performances, to, I think, long-term looking at change, they were really relying on how they felt in the morning, and that was going to dictate their day. And this is something that I do push a good bit, is that, and I put a podcast out on it recently, is that motivation is fickle. It's like when you look at people and you wonder, how are you so motivated? In general, the top performers, they aren't motivated all the time, but what they do have is serious discipline, and they're really, really able to just focus on a task and push through until they get it done. And I think it's something that I always try to push with my own clients, and that we look at especially if on a call they say, oh, I just didn't have the motivation to get a session in, or didn't have the motivation to get the run in. Well, we took a couple of steps back and we looked at, were they relying on motivation to get themselves to where they needed to be? Because if they were, well, motivation is determined by your mood on the day. Let's say the first message when you get up out of bed in the morning on your phone. It could be the sleep that you had the night before. If you're fighting with somebody, if you have a lot of stress in your life, motivation is obviously going to be lower to do things. It depends on your energy levels. It depends on your condition, your physical condition. Did you train the day before? It depends on so many factors that if we rely on it specifically, we'll find that we're only motivated twice a week, and they are the days on a Monday when the week starts, and then possibly on a Tuesday, and then as Wednesday comes, we start to get fatigued. We prioritize other things on Thursday, and it's Friday, it's the weekend, so we may as well relax. Okay, so that's a very common pattern that you'll see. And I think people need to look at changing their perspective from the motivation they have to get workouts done to actually focusing on discipline and working on having good discipline to get through sessions and to get through workouts and to achieve the goals that they have set out for themselves. And discipline is just getting up every day and doing what you need to do regardless of what comes in your way and what obstacles are in your way. You figure a way out around it, and then you just keep pushing on. So to move on from that, then I wanted to look at, are you aware of the tricks you may play on yourself to give yourself excuses in certain situations? And this was really what the lady I was chatting to, this is one of the things that she really struggled with, is that she found that she was an ultra endurance athlete, or she's an ultra endurance athlete, and she found that coming closer to races, that she would stay up later, she'd miss certain sessions, and she would eat less. And she didn't realize what she was trying to figure out is this something that she's doing to herself to give her an excuse when the race rolls down if she doesn't perform her best. And she found that on journaling and on reflection and just through awareness, that she was subconsciously doing this to herself to give herself, or to let herself off, so that she wouldn't have to consider wouldn't have to think about if she had done her best or not, because she could always fall back on these certain excuses. And it was a really interesting one when we dug into it, because it's something that you're completely unaware of, because it's obviously subconscious, so you're not conscious about it, you're not thinking about it all the time, but you're kind of putting it to the back of your mind. So when the day rolls around, you don't perform your best because, oh, I hurt my ankle a few months ago, or I hurt my knee a couple of weeks ago and I never really got that right. My back was at me that day. I didn't sleep well the couple of nights before it. I had work on, or I was pretty stressed. And relying on these excuses to, I think, let yourself off the hook a small bit. So this is, to be honest, guys, this podcast, I'm just throwing out these ideas because I want you to see if it is something you do to yourself. Have you ever noticed yourself doing this? Other things would be like overreacting to pain. So if you are really fatigued and you are going through a session and then you get like a crack. This is actually one I often see, is you get a crack in your back, the same as you could just crack your back or crack your neck on a normal day. But because you're tired and fatigued in that session, when you hear the crack in your back, you change your idea of it completely. So it's not now a crack in my back and that's relief. It's, oh, I cracked my back, so now there's a big problem there. Okay, and then you'll start overreacting. The body will start getting overprotective. You'll start to get a lot of pain. You can get spasms. You can get a lot of tightness. And it's more that you don't notice it, but because you were fatigued and because there's other things going on in the background, you start catastrophizing to this issue. You start catastrophizing that what's after happening to you is the worst thing that could happen to you, and that you have now injured your back or fractured your back, even though it's the same as if you just cracked your neck purposely. Okay, now this was more involuntary, so you didn't mean to do it. And people, I guess, think about that differently. The other one I often see with your back is that if you bend down to pick something up off the ground and you get like an ache in your back, people will often then catch their back, really, really grip it tightly, like as if they're after doing a lot of damage to it, squeeze it as tight as possible, and then as a result they'll start to get these spasms, they'll start to get a lot of soreness, and then they will take a couple of days off, a week off in a lot of situations, because they're fearing the worst. All right, and that's a really common one. The next one I think that needs to kind of come into light a small bit is a back spasm. It's a huge one, and I talk about it a lot. It's because a back spasm and a hamstring spasm, or a hamstring cramp, as they call it, are the exact same thing physiologically. The muscle is tensing, it's kind of sporadically just contracting and relaxing, and as a result it can be sore. Definitely, there's no question it can be really sore. Anyone who has had a hamstring cramp or a back cramp can attest to that. But it's your reaction to that will really cause the pain to get worse. And how does this fall into that subconscious tricks? Well, are you doing this more around big time when there's big things coming up? So if you have a big game coming up, or if you have a big training session, or if you are getting bet, and this is something I see in sports a lot, is if you're getting beaten, that people retire with injury through it. And you see it more in amateur sports than you do in professional not as much, but it's a subconscious trick that you can play on yourself to just let yourself off. Okay, and the thing is, as it's subconscious, you're not actually purposely doing it as much, but it's just happening to you, and then you're going with the flow in that situation. So if you're getting a back spasm, I think the reaction for a lot of people is they'll really grip it, they'll hold their breath, they'll really kind of contract their back and stand up as tall as they can, and squeeze everything to try help it relax, or squeeze everything to try minimize pain. But that's actually amplifying pain in a lot of situations. So it's really important to be aware of that and be aware of how you can change it in the moment. You look to relax it, you look to relax your breathing, you look to calm down. Okay. A back spasm, as I said, is the same as a hamstring cramp, but your reaction to it can make it worse. And that's what we need to be careful of. If you did the same thing for hamstring cramp, it would get just as severe. But a lot of the time, because it's the hamstring, we know to kind of just swing the leg out a small bit, let it ease off, and maybe walk on it, walk it off a small bit, or even do a couple of RDLs, or just get your legs swinging and rest up then in the evening because you're overworked. The other side of that is being too cautious when these things happen. So if you've really high awareness around a certain joint, you'll find that any small change can be significant in your mind, and that it'll go from like a little crack, as I said, like a crack of your knuckles, crack your neck, crack your back, to something more severe where it's the worst possible thing. The other thing is like saying it can't be done, and I see this often with people who've had surgery before. If they've had a hip surgery or a knee surgery at a young age, they'll say, there's no way I can get back to doing that. No way I can get back to running. And the body is really, really adaptable. You see some amazing things with what people can get back to doing if they set their mind to it. And I think that we need to be careful of saying what can't be done and can't be done, because we don't really know the limits of the body and we don't know what it can achieve yet. I think the last one then on that would be comparing to other successes or failures. So because you failed in the past, you're going to fail in the future. Because you were successful in the past, you're going to be successful in the future. And that's taken everything else out of the bag. So you're basically just, it doesn't matter what you've done, training wise, what you were like at that situation, the people that you worked with, the team that you played with, the attitude, their belief. If you feel that because you failed in the past, you'll fail in future, you're going to find that pattern will keep coming up again. And I think the same goes for, because you've been successful in the past, you'll be successful in the future. The pattern comes up again. It's probably a bit more positive, that one. But and the failure one is a difficult one to get over. But it's something that we need to become aware of. If you do play that trick in yourself that, I failed, so I'm going to let myself off because I failed in the past, it's not going to work for me. The rehab hasn't ever worked. I've already tried to fix this back issue. It doesn't work. There's no point trying again. You're not giving yourself too many other options then. So I think becoming aware of that and just noticing, okay, I do refer back to this because it's just I've lost all hope on it, or I've no motivation to do it. That's be more realistic in it, and really look into why that is. Okay, you can always improve, and I think that's really the point that I'm pushing here, is you can improve. You can always improve on these things, but first off, you need to become aware of them. I think that brings me on to the next topic of what's the solution to these problems, or how can you improve them. Okay, first off, as I said there, we need to become a bit more aware of them. It's very difficult to change something you're not aware of, and if you, as they are subconscious and they're not conscious, it's something that could be just playing on repeat in the back of your mind. So becoming aware of them could be a bit more difficult. But just notice and think back and reflect. Is it something that keeps cropping up? Does the same issue keep happening? If it does, you need to think about where you're falling down, why it crops up, when it crops up, and what you do about it when it happens. And I think a really effective one for people is to journal on it or meditate on it. But journaling is nice because you write it down and you can get it out of your head and onto paper, and you can look at it then. And I feel the act of writing it down makes you think about it that small bit more. Once you are aware of it, then you start laying out an action plan of what you can do to improve on it next time. If this thought pattern crops up, what are you going to do so that you can get it right? And it's something simple, like 2 to 3 steps. First off, become aware of the thought pattern. Next, I will do this when it happens. Next, I'll do that after this. Okay, so 2 to 3 steps of when I feel like I need to quit, I'm going to push on, or I'm going to dig deeper, or I'm going to work again, or become aware of that. I'm going to work on that by not quitting and being more disciplined. After that, then I'm going to, I don't know what the next one is, I'm going to push on even further again. Okay, very basic stuff there now, but that would help. Once you have a small action plan, it does help a good bit. The next one then is like just becoming present. And I think presence is really important because it does help you be more aware of what it's like in a certain situation. Hindsight is 20/20. So we can always look back on a thing and say, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done this better. But if we are present and we understand what's happening to us there and then, and you're aware of the thought pattern cropping up, then it's a lot easier to change that. And I think the last one is when you do find yourself playing these subconscious tricks of maybe staying up later, not eating as much, not training as much, skipping sessions, doing all this. Understand why you're doing something. Knowing why you do something is really important. And it doesn't have to be for the biggest thing in the world. You don't have to be doing something to cure cancer, or you don't have to be doing something so the rest of your life you can look back on it. It could be something as you enjoy being competitive. You enjoy interacting with other people. You enjoy testing yourself. It could be something as simple as that. It could be that you like to stay active because you like a healthy lifestyle. You like the identity of being a healthy person. You enjoy having energy so you can test yourself in any different context or any different sport. Knowing why you do it is really, really important, and it can help you when these things crop up and times get tough to push on and really make big change. But for now, guys, that's all I want to talk about. I'm going to leave it at that because it's just something that when I was talking to it with the client, it really made me think, where do I do it myself? And it really made me reflect and journal on it. And I noticed different patterns cropping up for myself and different things that I had to address if I wanted to get to the next level. And I think once I started implementing this with clients, I saw big changes, especially with people who had the same issue occurring over and over again. So if you feel that's something that you do, I would say first become aware of it, then journal on it, make an action plan, practice presence, where you're breathing, you're meditating, you're relaxing, you're giving gratitude to where you are, you've gratitude for where you are, and you're practicing gratitude. And then you'll see slowly but surely your habits will change, your identity will change, and you can start to progress a lot more. But yeah, guys, that is everything I wanted to talk about today. Thank you so much again for listening in this week. If you have any questions, please direct them to me on Instagram is probably the easiest place to get to me, or you can send me an email at mobilitytutor@gmail.com. I would love if you could subscribe on YouTube. I'm putting a lot more videos up on YouTube now, as well as TikTok. Two of those are starting to push on a good bit. And lastly, I would really like if you could send this on to a friend who you think would be interested in it, as well as maybe pop it up on your story. It would help a good bit as it promotes the podcast. And yeah, subscribe on iTunes, subscribe on Spotify, and I hope you are still taking loads from these podcasts, that you're getting a good understanding of the topics that we're talking about. And these topics are all open for discussion. So if you do have any questions, or if you do have any opinions, just send them on to me. I'd be happy to chat to you about them. And I think it's always good to get different opinions on these things. And if you have any topics you'd like me to cover, or you want me to go into detail on something else, just let me know. But that's all from me, guys and girls. If you are struggling with an injury long term, or it's a recurring injury, send me an email, and I will do my best to help you out. We can jump on a call and chat about it in a bit more detail. But for now, that's everything. I'll chat to you all again soon. Have a good one.